All right, the title, by the way, should be Digital Communication and Bringing Back the Small Faith Group. I'd like to talk about digital technology today and how it might relate to our faith lives. Roughly speaking, there are three ways that we make use of digital technology. First, we compute things. That's how it all got started. That's where the word came from, with big insurance companies processing claims and banks processing checks and big companies keeping their books on machines that were worth $1 million and kept down in the basement. Today, they're everywhere. They make our cars run efficiently and they do our taxes for us. The second use of technology is to hold information and give us ways of accessing it efficiently. Corporations and governments maintain huge databases. We have the web, which is effectively a widely distributed database that for all practical purposes is infinite in size, which is a problem because we can't do a thorough search of it as a result. And there's another problem with accessing the web. First of all, the tools that we have to access the web, search engines, are text-based. And so we end up typing in a few keywords and we see what pages come back that happen to have those words on them. And so what we're really doing is we're asking very shallow questions and getting very shallow answers. But I'll get back to that problem. The third use of digital technology is to communicate. We use email and texting, websites and social media to communicate over the combined internet and cellular infrastructure that surrounds the world. Now, these three capabilities are tied together, of course. We use communication technology like our cell phones to post information that ends up on the web, and then it's searched by programs that have to do some calculations like Google. But let's talk about church. Christian churches, in particular mainstream denominational churches, the ones that are not ultra-conservative, are in an extended phase of decline right now. There's a couple reasons for this. One is that in the 70s, it stopped being socially required, basically, to attend a church, so people no longer feel compelled. The other thing is, though, is that church doesn't really fit into our modern lifestyles or the values that most people have today. We're used to carefully tailoring our digital entertainment and having it delivered directly to us. We shop online, and we can keep track of all kinds of relationships with people without having to leave our homes or our offices. And so getting in a car on a Sunday morning and driving to a church to have an experience there seems like a huge and unwieldy commitment. So how could we be using digital communications in church? Well, there are those three things: computing, information retrieval, and communication, and we'll get back to the others, but we're already using communication a lot, digital communication a lot in our daily lives, so let's start there. Right now, for the most part, we use it superficially and we use it chaotically. We use digital technology to give us a feeling of being connected nonstop. The technology is really engineered around volume, i.e. being able to maintain a maximum number of ongoing relationships. But in truth, we only have the time to connect to a modest number of people in any meaningful way. So we end up with multiple interruptions during the day as people try to contact us by audio or email or text messages. Our phones tend to notify us when somebody we barely know posts a piece of trivia about their daily lives. I've taught in a major university computer science department and in an institute for technology and the arts for about 35 years, and I've witnessed a huge transformation that our society's made. We've gone from single-thread lives to frenetic lives filled with digital multitasking. We use digital and cellular communications really just to keep us busy. But our faith lives actually give us a wonderful opportunity to make a deep use of communications technology. The first quote from the Bible is from Hebrews, and it says, "Let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another." Now, the irony is, of course, is that in this day and age, with instantaneous and long-range internet and cellular connectivity, that problem that we're being told about in Hebrews is even worse. The United Methodist Church, given its history and its structure, I believe is in a perfect position to use digital technology in an effective way. In fact, in a very valuable way. The Methodist Church started out as a renewal effort, not really as a separate church. And the notion of a small group was at its core. Not many Methodists practice this today, but that's what Methodists did a long time ago. They met together to support and to encourage each other. It's just like where we were told in Hebrews. That was the model. Now, we could breathe new life into the small group concept by using video technology to work small group meetings into our frenetic lives. Meetings can be dynamically arranged, and people can visit without having to leave home. Video conferencing, I think, works well for about 3 to 10 people. We can also use social media and email and forums and texting if we want to keep in contact with the people in our small groups when we're not meeting via video. And by the way, there's a place here for computing, that original primary reason for computers being invented in the first place. Software technology can be used to connect like-minded people and place them in common groups. Or better yet, it can place us in groups where we're not at all like-minded, which might be a very good thing. We can also use technology to do more than just communicate with people within our own church. The United Methodist Church has a huge number of small to very small churches, with a number of bigger urban and regional churches. People in isolated churches whose memberships are declining could easily expand their connections to their United Methodist sisters and brothers by using technology. The isolation felt by people in rural communities isn't necessary. It does not have to exist. Digital small groups could become a major feature of the church, something that keeps us excited about our faith. Importantly now, clergy needs to get involved and take charge. Making use of modern communications to help us grow our spiritual lives should be a primary mission of the church and not just some convenience that IT people hand over to us. Small group communications, by the way, can also be extended to include interfaith interaction. We can break down ethnic and economic, geographic, and even faith barriers, and we can make our faith more relevant in the process. And by the way, communication doesn't just happen laterally in a healthy organization. The United Methodist Church has developed a deep and bureaucratic hierarchy, and it's very disconnected from individual church members. Its organizational model is very far from the nimble, team-oriented grassroots model that many innovative corporations use today. Large denominations need to develop communication loops between those high up in the polity and those of us who are down here in the field. Let's get back to those other issues, though, about computing and accessing information. Remember, communications, computing, and accessing information. So back to computing and information. Just as computing and communications are intimately tied together, because we need to have some smarts in the software that we use, so are accessing information and computing. The web's a vast database, and we need programs like Google to search for us. It is a simplistic brute force program, but it does do a lot of calculations. But there's technology now that's emerging that will allow us to far more intelligently search the web. Some people call it the semantic web. I'm not talking about natural language interfaces, by the way, like the simplistic one that we can use on our iPhones. I'm talking about something that would still probably be text-based, but where we could pose semantically deep questions. If you think of all the millions of people who are fleeing war and oppression and hunger, people who need help, many of them do post information on the web. Many of them are children or adults desperately trying to take care of children. But we're not listening, even though we could be. We can't do it with Google, but there's technology out there we could be using. And what about people right here in the U.S., in Colorado, in our cities and our towns? They could maybe at least use someone praying for them. We could be using the internet to interactively and proactively search for them. The information's there. But again, we're not looking and churches aren't looking. The United Methodist Church has the resources and the people to dive into the internet and make very deep use of it. There are millions of marginalized people in the U.S. alone who would love to have someone reach out to them. They can be found. We need to recruit software professionals to help get the infrastructure going, but the technology is already in place. Now, one more remark about small groups, though. We have the technology now to form vibrant online communities based on 3D virtual reality technology that allows us to gather together in simulated environments. We can sit together, we can talk one-on-one, and we can wander through a group meeting and talking. We could be holding true interactive Sunday services for people who are homebound or who live in remote areas or who just don't have the time or the transportation to go to church on a Sunday morning. Finally, let me say that we should be focusing on faith issues, on rebuilding the interpersonal structure of our church. Our second quote from Kings says, 1 Kings, "The whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his mind." It tells us that quote from 1 Kings tells us that wisdom does exist. We don't find it with Google. We're used to doing very, very simplistic things when we access information, but the truth is there, it's inside of us. God's placed it there, and all we need to do is share it with each other and find people to share it with. Christian churches, long ago in ancient times, were small, family-like groups of people who gathered together for mutual support so that they could live radiant lives. We could be like that again. We can step into the world digitally. We can offer practical support, political support, and prayer for those who need us. We can rebuild the church by computing, by accessing information, and by communicating. Thank you.